This video contains some spoilers for Professor Layton and the Spectre's Call. You have been warned. Misthallery, the mysterious, misty municipality hidden high up in the hills, shrouded in a mist thicker than your granny's gravy mix. This secretive settlement kicks off the prequel trilogy, with a mystery so bizarre its conclusion makes just as much sense as the Daily Tony Bard Instagram account. With its many winding rivers, gorgeous gardens and pleasing panoramas, Misthallery is a superb location, and to me it was the last proper Layton-esque location in the series, matching the defining aesthetics of St Mystere, Folsense and future London. But story mode aside, wouldn't it be great to place this curious community on a map of the UK? Well, if that's the content you're looking for, I've got some fantastic news, as in today's episode of Another Puzzle Solved, we'll be tracking down the town itself. And so without any further ado, let's crack this case. To start with, we needed to find the key defining features of Misthallery, to then search for matching features in real UK towns. Looking at this map of Misthallery, the greatest component of the town is its imposing reservoir and dam at the top of the hill. Instantly, this meant that our real-world town had to have a reservoir, though it turns out there are quite a lot of those in the UK, and I really mean a lot. The Wikipedia page for reservoirs in England alone has over 400 entries, and even that list wasn't totally complete. But still, I sat down and I checked through every single one to try and find a reservoir that lined up with Misthallery's one. To do this, I had to make sure that the reservoir sat at the top of the town, with very few buildings nearby to it. This then eliminated reservoirs in the middle of nowhere, but also ones in the middle of towns and cities. Using just this one piece of criteria, I managed to get the over 400 reservoirs down to just 11. And they are Lymm, Lower Drift, Castle Carrock, Marsden, Ironville, Whaley Bridge, Belmont, Whitworth, Egerton, Wardle and Oxenhope. With these 11, I then started looking at what other features Misthallery had that made it stand out against other towns. After the dam, my attention was drawn to Bard Manor, and while a mansion of this design was never going to be found anywhere, I decided that a stately home, castle or manor house was a necessity for our town to become Misthallery. Also looking upon the map, I was drawn to the town's imposing abandoned factory, and so I decided that there must be some form of local industry in the town. This didn't necessarily have to be old or abandoned, but it would have been nice to find something with a bit of history to it, like an old mill or a factory. Additionally, no real-world Misthallery would be complete without a reference to the black market. Though I reckon if any of these places did have a shadowy bazaar ran by a mafia of children, I doubt they'd be advertising it on Google Maps. As a stand-in for the black market then, I'd be accepting any form of farmer's market or collection of stalls, whether that was permanent or even monthly. The Golden Garden dig site is another pretty prominent location up in the northwest corner of the town, so I added that to my list of requirements, only replacing it with either a local quarry or perhaps an old mine. Next, I turned my attention to the Marine Life Research Centre in the woods to the west of the town. Again, it was going to be pretty difficult to find a business or a laboratory that specialised in ichthyology, so I instead accepted any nearby waterworks, whether that was a water treatment centre, a laboratory or other water-based organisation. Less important, but still on the checklist, was a town police station, a memorial or plinth, and a hotel for Layton and Emmy to stay at. With these requirements in mind, I got to work on finding our new Misthallery. The first to go from the list was Oxenhope, which met absolutely zero of the extra requirements. It did have a listed property in the town called the Manor House, but compared to Bard Manor, it was just a slightly larger than average house, so I couldn't really accept it as equal. After Oxenhope, the next to go was Wardle, a small town just outside of Rochdale. The only additional requirement that Wardle met was the presence of industry in the town, and this came in the form of the abandoned Wardle Tannery, first opened in 1860. Next to go was Lower Drift, Ironville and Egerton. Lower Drift had only a memorial and a hotel, albeit a converted workshop into a hotel, which kicked it off the list, whereas Ironville had a monument and local industry, having been set up as a model town to house workers of the nearby manufacturing firm, the Butterley Company. With Egerton, it had the same features as Ironville, in that it had a memorial in the town and a local mill, which now served as an industrial estate. The town did once have a hotel, the Egerton House Hotel, but by the time of this investigation, it's being transformed into a care home. They also found a skull there a few years back. Bit weird. Next up, we had 5 towns get the boot at the same time, being Lymm, Castle Carrick, Marsden, Belmont and Whitworth. All of these towns had at least 4 of the additional requirements, but that still wasn't enough to take the top spot. Lymm, for example, had a manor, a market, a monument and a police station, but no sign of a local industry, a quarry, a hotel or waterworks. Castle Carrick had a manor, a monument, waterworks and a police station, but nothing else that could make it up to 5. Likewise with the other 3 towns, there just wasn't enough to really make them our new Misthallery. But the good thing is that meant we only had 1 town remaining, and with a total of 5 additional requirements out of 8, I can confirm that the closest town in England to Misthallery is Whaley Bridge. Whaley Bridge is a town in the High Peak district of Derbyshire, not far from the border of neighbouring county Cheshire. The Todbrook Reservoir sits proudly above the town, having first been constructed in the mid-1830s, opening in 1838. Back in 2019, the dam did actually partially burst, though unlike the game, this was due to poorly maintained infrastructure and heavy rain, rather than a mythical sea creature smacking it until it flooded the town. Still, at least the residents of Whaley Bridge were evacuated while emergency works could take place, whereas Loosha just did not give a shit. While a fair bit different in design to Bard Manor, the nearby Whaley Hall now serves as an events venue, though parts of it can be dated back to the 12th century. The town also has a prominent industrial estate with historic factories and mills, as well as a wastewater treatment works, and while the main body of water can be found at the reservoir, the town also sits nicely on the River Goyt and Randall Carr Brook. On every second Saturday of the month, the Whaley Bridge Farmers Market meets the Canal Basin, and one-upping Misthallery's memorial plinth in Highyard Hill, Whaley Bridge has an entire memorial park, with a statue in the centre commemorating the men who lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. While there's still no sign of a quarry nearby for Descalay to rip up, a police station for Jakes to giggle in, or a hotel to be smashed to pieces by a sea monster, Whaley Bridge is definitely the closest we can get to our little misty town. And so, with Misthallery now firmly back on the map, that right there is another puzzle solved.